I know. 5 months since the last episode of Illustrated Magic, sorry.
If you're just arriving here now, Illustrated Magic is the series where I read Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, with original illustrations made just for this series, and unfortunately, guys, I can't help but quickly tell you here, before we continue reading the chapter, that we stopped. Yes, I went a while without recording Illustrated Magic because, at the end of the year and all, a lot of Harry Potter news came out about the series, right? And those videos ended up taking priority. And I also, at the end of the year, went a while without posting videos, pretty much the whole month of December. I mean, I posted about 3 or 4 videos that were already ready because my dog got sick and all, you know? Anyone who follows me on social media knows what happened, knows that Zeus isn't well, that he's in the terminal stage, he's under palliative care, so it's been really hard. That's why I stopped reading and doing this segment for a while. I need to feel okay to make all the videos. But this one, especially since it's about reading, I just can't do it. If I'm not 100% focused and 100%, calm to do it, I just can't, So that's why this segment took a while to come out, took a while to come back. But here it is again. I can't promise that there will be videos one after another, or that there will be a lot of videos. But my plan is that at least 2 episodes will come out this January. Alright?
And next month we'll see how it goes. Oh, another thing, sorry guys, but I need to say this. A lot of people contributed to Magulus through live pics with the QR code and didn't put their email to receive the illustrations, right? What?
I made a campaign here to support the show, where people receive specific illustrations from that show to color, to print and color. But a lot of people send messages and don't put their email. I have no way of guessing who sent it. So there were some people who didn't get it, didn't get the illustrations. I didn't send it because the person didn't identify themselves. So, identify yourselves. The QR code is right here.
If you contribute, you'll get the illustrations from this episode, all right? But don't forget to put your email. Now, yes, we can continue.
Chapter 6. Boarding on the platform. 93 quarters, I'm going to read it as 93 quarters right away, even though the book says 9:30, because I'm more used to 93 quarters, and I also prefer it. But just so you know, in this edition, it says 9:30. Harry's last month at the Dursleys' house was not fun at all. It's true that Duda was now so terrified of Harry that he didn't even want to be in the same room with him. And Aunt Petunia and Uncle Walter didn't lock Harry in the cupboard, nor did they make him do anything, or even yell at him. In fact, they didn't even speak to him. Half terrified, half furious, they acted as if the chair Harry sat in was empty. Although this was, in many ways, an improvement, it became rather depressing.
After a while, the Dursleys, terrified by the fact that Harry was a wizard, actually thought they could get the magic out of the boy.
Harry stayed in his room with the new owl for company. They decided to name her Hedwig, a name they found in the history of magic. His school books were very interesting. He would lie in bed, reading late into the night, while Hedwig flew in and out of the window as she pleased. It was lucky that Aunt Petunia didn't come in to vacuum anymore, because Hedwig kept bringing dead mice into the room. Every night, before going to bed, Harry would cross off another day on the piece of paper he had pinned to the wall to count down the days until September 1st.
On the last day of August, he thought it best to talk to his aunt and uncle about the trip to the station the next day.
So he went down to the living room, where they were watching a game show on television. He cleared his throat to announce his presence, making Duda scream and run out. Uncle Walter, he muttered to show he was listening. I need to be at the station tomorrow to board the train to Hogwarts, Uncle Walter muttered again. Couldn't you give me a ride?
Mutter. Harry supposed he meant yes, thank you very much, and was already heading back upstairs when Uncle Walter actually spoke.
What a funny way to go to a magic school by train. Did all the magic carpets get punctured?
Harry didn't answer.
Where is this school anyway?
I don't know, said Harry. Thinking about it for the first time, he took the ticket Hagrid had given him out of his pocket. I'll take the train from platform 9 3/4 at 11, he read. His aunt and uncle's eyes widened.
Platform what?
9 3/4? No.
Say nonsense.
Uncle Walter scolded.
There is no platform 9 3/4.
It's on my ticket.
Crazy,
Said Uncle Walter.
From Pedro. All of them, you'll see, just wait. Alright, we'll take you to the station. Anyway, we have to go to London tomorrow, or I wouldn't even bother.
Why are you going to London?
Asked Harry, trying to stay cordial.
We're taking Dudley to the hospital, muttered Uncle Walter. We need to get that red tail cut off before we send him to Smeltings.
Harry woke up at 5 o'clock the next morning and was too excited and nervous to go back to sleep.
He got up and put on his jeans because he didn't want to enter the station in wizard robes. He would change clothes later. On the train, he checked the Hogwarts list again to make sure he had everything he needed. He saw that Vigiz's was safely locked in the cage, and then he walked around the room waiting for the Dursleys to get up. 2 hours later, Harry's huge and heavy trunk was placed in the Dursleys' car. Aunt Petunia had convinced Dudley to sit next to his cousin. They got to King's Cross Station at 10:30. Walter threw Harry's trunk onto a trolley and pushed it into the station. To Harry, the gesture seemed kind, until Uncle Walter stopped in front of the platforms with a wonderful smile.
Well, here we are, boy. Platform 9, Platform 10, your platform should be right in the middle, but it looks like they haven't built it yet, have they?
He was right, of course. There was a big plastic number 9 on top of one platform and a big number 10 on top of the next platform, but there was nothing in between.
Enjoy your term,
said Uncle Walter, smiling wickedly, then left without another word. Harry saw the Dursleys' car drive away. The three of them were laughing, and Harry felt his mouth go dry. What the hell was he going to do? He was starting to attract a lot of curious looks. Because of Hedwig, he would have to ask someone, I want to make a comment here at this moment that I really want to see in the series. That thing with Walter taking Harry, leaving him there on the platform and kind of mocking him, you know? To show a bit more of their cruelty. Leaving the child, grabbing the big suitcase, setting it down, leaving the child again, and mocking Harry. You know? A guard walked by but didn't mention the platform.
9 3/4. The guard had never heard of Hogwarts, and when Harry couldn't tell him where in the country the school was, he started to get annoyed, as if Harry was pretending to be dumb on purpose. Desperate, Harry asked about the train that left at 11 o'clock. The guard said there wasn't one. In the end, the guard walked away, grumbling about people who made him waste his time. Harry tried, with all his might, not to panic because of the big clock above the board announcing the arriving trains. He only had 10 minutes left to board the Hogwarts train, and he had no idea how he was going to do it. He was lost in the middle of the station, with a suitcase he could barely lift, his pocket full of wizard money, and a big owl. Hagrid must have forgotten to tell him something he had to do, like tapping the third brick on the left to enter Diagon Alley. He considered taking his wand from the suitcase and tapping it on the barrier between platforms 9 and 10. At that moment, a group of people passed behind him, and he overheard a few words saying, "Full of muggles, of course." Harry turned around. It was a plump woman talking to 4 boys, all with flaming red hair. Each of them was pushing a trunk like Harry's and carrying an owl. His heart pounding, he laughed and followed them, pushing his cart. They stopped, and so did he, very close, to hear what they were saying. "Now, what's the platform number?" asked the boy's mother. 9 3/4, came the high voice of a little girl, also with red hair, who was holding the woman's hand. "Mommy, can't I go? You're not old enough yet." "Ginny, now be quiet." "All right, Percy. You go first." What seemed to be the oldest boy marched toward platforms 9 and 10. Harry watched him, careful not to blink so he wouldn't miss anything. But as soon as the boy reached the dividing line between the 2 platforms, a large group of tourists invaded the platform in front of him. And when the last backpack had passed, the boy had disappeared. "Fred, you just sent the fat lady now." "I'm not Fred, I'm George," the boy replied. "Honestly, woman, you say you're our mother. Can't you see I'm George?" "Sorry, dear. Just kidding. I'm Fred,"
he said. The twin brother shouted at him to hurry up, and he must have listened because a second later he was gone. How did he do that just now? The third brother was quickly heading toward the barrier. He was almost there, and then, suddenly, he wasn't anywhere anymore.
"Excuse me," Harry said to the fat lady. "Hello, dear. Is it your first time going to Hogwarts? Ron is new too."
She pointed to her youngest son, who was tall, thin, gangly, with freckles, large hands and feet, and a long nose. "Yes," Harry replied. The thing is, I don't know how to get to the platform," she said kindly, and Harry nodded. "Don't worry, just walk straight at the barrier between platforms 9 and 10. Don't stop and don't be afraid of crashing into it. That's very important. It's better to do it at a bit of a run if you're nervous."
Ah, okay. And Harry turned the trolley and faced it. The barrier looked very solid. He started walking toward it.
People on their way to platforms 9 and 10 were pushing him. Harry quickened his pace. He was going to crash right into the ticket collector, and then he'd be in trouble.
Bending over the trolley, he broke into a run. The barrier was getting closer and closer. He couldn't stop. The trolley was out of control. He was just a step away. He closed his eyes, bracing himself for the collision. It didn't happen.
He kept running and opened his eyes. A red steam locomotive was standing still. The platform was crowded with people. A sign above read, "Hogwarts Express, 11 o'clock. Harry looked back and saw a wrought iron arch where the ticket collector had been, with the words, "Platform 9 3/4." Had he made it? The locomotive's smoke was drifting over the heads of the people who were talking, while cats of all colors weaved between their legs. Owls hooted at each other, displeased, rising above the commotion and the noise of heavy trunks being dragged. The first carriages were already full of students.
Some were leaning out the windows, talking to their families, others arguing over seats.
Harry pushed the cart along the platform, looking for an empty spot. He passed by a round-faced boy who was saying, "Grandma, I lost my toad again." "Oh, right, Grandma." He heard the old lady sigh. A boy with dreadlocks was surrounded by a small group of boys. "Let me take a look, Lino. Come on." The boy lifted the lid of a box he was carrying in his arms, and the people around him shouted and yelled when something inside the box stretched out. A long, hairy leg. Harry kept walking through the crowd until he found an empty compartment. First, he put Hedwig inside and started pushing and forcing the suitcase toward the train door. He tried to lift it up the steps, but could barely raise one end and twice dropped it painfully on his foot. Need a hand? It was one of the red-haired twins he had followed through the barrier. "Please," Harry panted. "Hey, Fred, come give me a hand here." With the twins' help, Harry's trunk was finally placed in a corner of the compartment. "Thanks," said Harry, brushing the sweaty hair out of his eyes. "What's that?" one of the twins suddenly asked, pointing at Harry's scar. "Wow," said the other twin. "You are? He is?" said the other twin. "Aren't you?" he added to Harry, who asked Harry Potter. "How is it, you know? Twins, leather?" "Oh, is it him?" said Harry. "I mean, yes, I am." The two boys looked open-mouthed. Harry felt he was blushing. Then, to his relief, they heard a voice through the open train door. "Fred, Jorge, are you there? We're coming, Mom," taking one last look at Harry. The twins jumped out of the train. That's something I also want to see in the series. Harry's first contact with the Weasleys. With Mrs. Weasley, right? Cool. But the first contact is with Fred and Jorge, helping him put his trunk away. I'm not saying that, so, it's going to be really cool. That in the series, you know? I bet in the series they'll even include that thing with the linen box. With the box there with the tarantula, you know? I'm sure they'll include it. Something deep down tells me they will. Harry sat by the window, where, half hidden, he could watch the red-haired family on the platform and listen to what they were saying. The mother had just pulled out her handkerchief. "Ron, you've got something on your nose." The youngest boy started to run away, but she grabbed him and began to clean the tip of his nose.
"Mom, get off." he broke free. "Oh, little Ronnie's got something on his nose," teased one of the twins. "Shut up," said Ron. "Where's Percy?"
Asked their mother if he was coming. The oldest boy was already coming, putting on the loose black Hogwarts robes, and Harry noticed he had a shiny silver badge with the letter P. Here, I want to say two things.
In the series, we'll see Mrs. Weasley cleaning Ron's nose because in the leaked images from the platform filming, you can see Molly holding a little handkerchief. So yeah, we're going to see that. And about another comment, this part here about the shiny silver badge with the letter M is a mistake that was corrected.
Later, in the following versions, it was corrected because the badge, the prefect's badge, has Gryffindor's colors. So it's gold and red, right? So here it is. This was changed later. "I might take a while, Mom," he said. "I'm up front. The prefects have separate carriages." "Oh, you're a prefect, Percy?" asked one twin, looking surprised. "You should have told us. We had no idea." "Wait a minute. I think I remember hearing him say something," said the other twin.
"Once or twice, a minute, the whole summer." "Oh, shut up," said Percy, the prefect. "After all, why did Percy get new robes?" asked one of the twins. "Because he's a prefect," said their mother fondly.
"All right, dear. Have a good school year. Send me an owl." When he arrived, she kissed Percy on the cheek and he left. Then she turned to the twins. "Now, you two, behave yourselves this year. If I get one more owl saying that you blew up a bathroom or blew up a bathroom, you never blew up."
But it's a great idea.
"Thank you, Mom. It's not funny. And take care of Ron. Don't worry. Little Ron is safe with us." "Shut up," told Ron again. He was almost as tall as the twins, and his nose was still red where his mother had rubbed it. "Hey, Mom, guess what? Who did we just meet on the train?" Harry quickly pulled back so they wouldn't see him looking. "You know that boy with black hair who was near us at the station? Do you know who he is?" "Who?" Harry Potter heard the little girl's voice. "Oh, Mom, can I get on the train to see him? Mom, please, did you hear Ginny? And the poor thing isn't a zoo animal for you to stare at. It's really him, Fred. How do you know?" "I asked him and saw the scar. It really looks like a lightning bolt. Poor thing. No wonder he was alone. He was so polite asking me how to get on the platform." "Never mind. Do you think he remembers what it was like? Or you know who?" Suddenly, Mom became very serious. "I forbid you to ask him, Fred. No, don't you dare." As if he needed someone to remind him of something like that.
"It's okay to not be nervous on the first day of school."
A whistle was heard quickly, said the mother, and the three boys got on the train. They leaned out the window for their mother's goodbye kiss as their little sister began to cry. "Don't cry, Gina. We'll send you lots of owls. We'll send you a Hogwarts toilet seat cover." "I'm just kidding, Mom." The train started to move, and Harry saw the boys' mother waving and their sister, half smiling, half crying, running to keep up with the train.
Until it picked up speed and she was left behind, waving, Harry watched the girl and her mother disappear. When the train rounded the bend, the houses flashed by.
Looking out the window, Harry felt a great excitement. He didn't know where he was going, but it had to be better than the place he was leaving behind. The compartment door opened and the younger red-haired boy came in. "Is anyone sitting there?" he asked, pointing to the seat across from Harry. "The rest of the train is full." Harry shook his head and said no. The boy sat down, glanced at Harry, then quickly looked away as if he hadn't. Harry noticed a black smudge still on his nose. "Hey, Ron, the twins are back. Listen, let's go to the middle of the train. Lee Jordan brought a giant tarantula, right?" Ron muttered. "Harry," said the other twin, "we've already introduced ourselves, Fred and George Weasley, and that's Ron, our brother." "See you later then. Bye," said Harry and Ron. The twins closed the compartment door as they passed. "You really are Harry Potter," Ron blurted out. Harry nodded.
"Oh, well, I thought it was a joke from Fred and George, and you really do have it, you know?"
He pointed at Harry's forehead. Harry moved his bangs to reveal the lightning scar. He looked. "So that's when you know who did it? But you don't remember anything?" asked Ron eagerly. Well, I remember a lot of green light, but nothing else. Wow. He stood there for a few minutes looking at Harry. Then, as if he suddenly realized what he was doing, he quickly looked out the window. Again.
Is everyone in your family a wizard? Asked Harry, who found Ron as strange and interesting as Ron found him. I think they are. Yes, I think my mom has a second cousin who's an accountant, but nobody ever talks about him, so you must know a lot of magic.
The Weasleys, apparently, were one of those old wizarding families that the pale boy in Diagon Alley had talked about. I heard you went to live with some muggles. Are they really that awful? Well, not all of them, but my aunt, my uncle, and my cousin are. I wish I had had 3 wizard brothers. 5. For some reason, he seemed sad. I'm the 6th in my family to go to Hogwarts. You could say I have to live up to the name. Gui and Carlinhos have already finished school. Gui was head boy, and Carlinhos was captain of the Quidditch team. Now Percy is a prefect. Fred and Jorge make a lot of trouble, but they get very good grades, and everyone thinks they're really funny. Everyone expects me to do as well as the others, but if I do well, it won't be anything special. They did it first, and you won't get anything new. When you have 5 brothers, I use Guy's old robes, Carlinhos' old wand, and Percy's old rat. Ron put his hand in the inside pocket of his jacket and took out a fat gray rat that was sleeping. Man, this part here, I really relate to Ron.
Because when I was a kid, I also got a lot of things that belonged to others. I got a lot of used stuff, a lot of used clothes. Man, I got so many clothes.
So I really relate to him here, poor guy. His name is Scabbers. He's useless. He almost never wakes up. Percy got an owl from my dad for being chosen as a prefect, but they couldn't have, instead, I got Scabbers.
Ron's ears turned red. He seemed to think he had said too much, because he went back to looking out the window.
Harry didn't think it was a big deal that someone couldn't afford to buy an owl. After all, he had never had any money in his life until a month ago. And he told that to Ron.
He also told him how he felt when he had to wear Dudley's old clothes, and that he had never gotten a decent birthday present. That seemed to cheer Ron up a bit.
And until Rubius told me, I didn't know what it meant to be a wizard, or who my parents were, or about Voldemort.
Ron was stunned. What did you do? You said you know whose name? Exclaimed Ron, looking both shocked and impressed at the same time. I thought that of all people, I'm trying to be brave.
It's just that I never knew you couldn't say his name. See what I mean?
I've got a lot to learn, I bet, he added, putting into words for the first time something that had been worrying him a lot lately. I bet I'm going to be the worst in the class, aren't I? There are a lot of people who come from Muggle families and learn really fast, they said as they talked. The train left London.
Now they were running through fields full of cows and sheep. They fell silent for a while, watching the fields and little roads flash by.
Around 12:30, they heard a loud noise in the corridor, and a woman, all smiles and dimples, opened the door and asked, "Would you like anything from the trolley, dears?" Harry, who hadn't had breakfast, jumped up at once, but Ron's ears turned red again, and he mumbled that he had brought sandwiches. Harry went over to the trolley. He'd never had money for sweets at the Dursleys. Now his pockets jingled with gold and silver coins.
He was ready to buy as many chocolate bars as he could carry, but the woman didn't have any bars.
She had all sorts of things in every flavor: jelly beans, bubblegum, chocolate frogs, pumpkin pasties, cauldron cakes, licorice wands, and lots of other strange things that Harry had never seen in his life. Not wanting to miss out on anything, he bought one of each and paid the woman 11 silver sickles and 7 knuts.
Ron widened his eyes when Harry brought everything into the compartment and dumped it on the empty seat. "So hungry, huh? Starving," answered Harry.
Ron took a large bite of pumpkin pie, pulled out a lumpy package, and opened it. Inside were 4 sandwiches. He unwrapped one and spoke. "She always forgets that I don't like canned meat. I'll trade you for one of those," Harry offered, holding out a meat pie. "Here, you won't want this. It's too dry and she doesn't have much time," he added. "Hurry up."
You know, there are 5 of us here, so take it as a pie, said Harry, who had never had anything to share with anyone before. In fact, not even anyone to share with.
It was a nice feeling to sit there with Ron, finishing off all of Harry's pies and cakes. The sandwiches were forgotten. "What's that?" asked Harry to Ron, showing him a package of chocolate frog. "They're not real frogs, are they?" He was starting to think that nothing would surprise him anymore. "No, but see which card it is? I'm missing the grip here. There's a small translation mistake. The feminine article is wrong. It's either Agrippa or Agrippa, but not Agrippa." "What?" "Of course you don't know. Chocolate frogs have cards inside, you know? To collect famous wizards and witches, there are about 500, but there's no Grippa nor Ptolemy."
Harry opened the chocolate frog and pulled it out.
The card showed the face of a man, wearing half-moon glasses, with a long, crooked nose, flowing silver hair, beard, and mustache.
Under the portrait was the name Alvo Dumbledore. "So this is Dumbledore," exclaimed Harry.
"Don't tell me you've never heard of Dumbledore. Want to give me a frog? Maybe I'll get the Grippa." "Thank you." Harry turned the card over and read, "Alvo Dumbledore, currently headmaster of Hogwarts. Considered by many to be the greatest wizard of modern times, Dumbledore is particularly famous for having defeated Grindelwald, the Dark Wizard, in 1945. For having discovered the 12 uses of dragon's blood, and for developing work in alchemy in partnership with Nicolau Flamel, Professor Dumbledore enjoys chamber music and bowling." Harry flipped the card again, and to his surprise, Dumbledore's face was gone. He disappeared. "Well, you can't expect him to stay there all day. He'll come back later." "I didn't get Morgana again. I already have about 6 of her. Do you want it? You can start collecting." Ron's eyes wandered over to the pile of chocolate frogs that were still unopened. "Help yourself," said Harry.
But, you know, in the Muggle world, people just stand still in photos. They don't move.
Ron looked surprised. "That's odd. What a strange thing." He widened his eyes when Dumbledore returned to the card and gave him a little smile. Ron was more interested in eating the frogs than looking at the famous witches and wizards, but Harry couldn't take his eyes off them. Soon, there wasn't just Dumbledore and Morgana, but also Hengist of Woodcroft, Alberic Grunion, Circe, Paracelsus, and Merlin. Finally, he tore his eyes away from the druid Cleodna, who was scratching her nose, to open the every flavor beans bag. "You have to be careful with those," Ron warned. "When they say every flavor, they really mean every flavor, you know?"
Usual flavors like chocolate, mint, and orange, plus spinach, liver, and tripe.
George swears he tasted boggart once.
There's a translation error here. It shouldn't be boggart. The correct word is boogie, which means snot, but boogie can also mean bogeyman, as in the slimy boogeyman, so it's similar to snot.
The translation is wrong. Ron picked up a green candy, examined it closely, and bit off one end. "Ugh, do you see Brussels sprouts?" They had fun eating the candies. Harry got toast, coconut, baked beans, strawberry, curry, grass, coffee, and sardine. He even got brave enough to bite a gray candy, which was funny. Ron refused to try it because it was pepper-flavored. The fields passing by the window were becoming wilder now. The crops had disappeared, and there were woods, winding rivers, and dark green hills. They heard a knock at the compartment door, and the round-faced boy whom Harry had passed on platform 9 3/4 came in. He looked tearful. "Excuse me, but have you seen a toad?" When they both shook their heads, he cried, "I lost him. He's always running away from me." "He'll turn up," Harry comforted him. Go on," said the boy unhappily. "If you see him," and he left. "I don't know why he's so upset," said Ron. "If I had brought a toad, I'd want to lose it as quickly as I could, but I brought Scabbers, so I can't say anything." The rat kept napping on Ron's lap. "He could be dead. No one would know the difference," said Ron, displeased. "I tried to turn him yellow to make him more interesting, but the spell didn't work. I'll show you, look." He rummaged through his suitcase and pulled out a very worn wand. It was chipped in some places, and there was something white shining at the tip. The unicorn hair is almost coming out. In any case,
He had just raised his wand when the compartment door opened again. The boy without the toad was back. This time he had a girl with him. She was already wearing the new Hogwarts robes. Has anyone seen a toad? Neville's lost his. She had a bossy tone of voice, very bushy brown hair, and rather large front teeth. We've already told him we haven't seen the toad, replied Ron. But the girl wasn't listening. She was looking at the wand in his hand. You're doing magic. Let's see. He sat down and looked embarrassed. All right, cleared his throat Sol Margaritas. Ripe yellow turns to yellow, that old and dumb rat. He waved his wand, but nothing happened. Scabbers remained gray and completely asleep. Are you sure that spell is right? Asked the girl. Well, it's not very good, is it? I tried a simple spell, just to practice, and it worked. No one in my family is a wizard.
It was a huge surprise. I got the letter. I was so happy, of course. I mean, it's the best wizarding school there is.
They told me I've already memorized all the books they told us to buy. Of course, I just hope it's enough. By the way, I'm Hermione Granger. And who are you? She said all that very quickly. Harry looked at Ron and felt a great relief when he saw, by his astonished face, that he hadn't memorized all the books. I'm not Ron Weasley either. Harry Potter. Actually, I've heard about you. Of course. I have other recommended books, and you're in them. In the history of modern magic and in the rise and fall of the dark arts, and in great magical events of the 20th century. Harry wondered, confused. I am. Wow, you didn't know. I would have tried to find out everything I could if it were me, said Hermione. Do you already know which house you'll be in? I've been asking people. I hope to join Gryffindor. It seems the best. I heard Dumbledore was in it, but Ravenclaw sounds good too. Anyway, I think we'd better go look for Neville's toad, and you guys should get changed, you know? We'll be arriving soon. And she left, taking the boy without the toad. Whatever house I'm in, I hope she's not there, Ron commented, and he threw the wand back into his suitcase. Stupid spell. George taught me, and I bet he knew that part didn't work. I really want to see that in the series too. I want to see Hermione coming in with Neville, looking for the toad on the Hogwarts Express, from a different point of view, not Harry's. You know, the series has room for all of that, and I really want to see it happen. And look, I think there's a good chance it will happen. A good chance. A good chance. What house are your brothers in? Asked Harry. Gryffindor. The sadness seemed to be taking over him again. Mom and Dad were there too. I don't know what they'll say if I'm not. I think Ravenclaw wouldn't be too bad, but imagine if they put me in... Slytherin is the house I'm going to. I mean, you know, who was there is, and sank back into the seat again, looking depressed, you know? I think the tips of Pedro's mustache got a little lighter, said Harry, trying to distract Ron from thinking about the houses. So, what do your older brothers do now that they're done? Harry was wondering what a wizard did after finishing school. Carlinhos is in Romania studying dragons, and Gui is in Africa doing some work for Gringotts. Did you hear what happened with Gringotts? The Daily Prophet only covers that, but since you live with Muggles, you probably don't get the paper. They tried to rob a high-security vault. Harry's eyes widened. Really? What happened to them? Nothing. That's why it's such big news. They weren't caught. Dad said it must have been a dark wizard, powerful enough to fool Gringotts. But they think they didn't take anything, which is what's weird. Of course, everyone gets scared when something like that happens, because you know who could be behind it. Harry went over the news.
Mentally, he was starting to feel a chill of fear every time you know who was mentioned.
He supposed that this was part of entering the wizarding world, but it had been much more comfortable to say Voldemort without worrying. Man, do you see how the movie changes a lot of things? I'm not sure if you notice while reading, but there's this thing with the newspaper, the robbery, Gringotts, and all that. Harry only notices it at Hogwarts when he asks to see Ron's newspaper and reads the news himself, which is different. Is it your Quidditch team? Asked Ron. I don't know any, Harry admitted, which made Ron look astonished. Ah, wait, it's the best game in the world.
and he went on explaining everything about the 4 balls and the positions of the 7 players, describing famous matches.
He talked about going with his brothers and the broomstick he'd buy if he had money. He was showing Harry the game's qualities when the compartment door opened.
This time, it was Neville, the boy without a toad, not Hermione Granger. I'd also like to make another quick comment.
I'm glad the series will highlight Ron's passion from the beginning.
Because the clothes he's wearing when he's about to board for Hogwarts is a Chudley Cannons t-shirt, which is his favorite team, which was the outfit we saw there. In the leaked images, they're arriving at King's Cross to film, so I'm really happy that this is going to be addressed, and even happier that they corrected the founding date of the Chudley Cannons in the series, because in the movies, it's wrong. Let's get back to the topic.
3 boys came in, and Harry recognized the one in the middle right away. It was the pale boy from Madame Malkin's robe shop. Malkin looked at Harry with much more interest than she had shown in Diagon Alley. "Is it true?"
she asked. "They're saying on the train that Harry Potter is in this compartment, so yeah, are you him?" he replied. Harry. He watched the other boys. The 2 of them were strong and looked very mean. Standing next to the pale boy, they looked like bodyguards.
"Ah, this is Crabbe, and this is Goyle," the pale boy introduced carelessly, noticing Harry's interest.
"And my name is Draco Malfoy. No joke. It's written as Draco Malfoy in this version. This is the first edition released in Brazil. Draco's name is wrong. In every mention, it's Draco Malfoy. Of course, I'm going to read it as Draco, but here I just read Draco. Just out of curiosity, I don't have this version. Maybe someone who does knows. Maybe you don't have this version either. Well, it's just a fun fact. What could it be?" Hiding a little laugh, Malfoy looked at him. "Do you think my name is funny?" "Yeah, I don't even need to ask who you are."
"My father said the Weasley family all have red hair, freckles, and more kids than they can afford." He turned away.
"Harry, you'll soon find out that some wizarding families are much better than others. Harry, I can help you make the right friends." He held out his hand for Harry to shake, but Harry didn't take it. "I like Harry, and it bothers me when people don't like Harry. There are people who don't like Harry. Can you believe it? I like Harry. Harry."
It's not hard. I can tell who the wrong sorter myself. Thanks, he said coldly.
Draco didn't turn red, but a slight blush colored his pale face. "I'd be more careful if I were you," Potter said slowly. "Unless you learn some manners, you'll end up just like your parents. They didn't have any sense either. You hang around with riffraff like the Weasleys, and that redhead is going to end up tainted." Harry and Ron stood up, Ron's face as red as his hair. "Say that again." "Oh, are you going to fight us, Draco?" he sneered. "Unless you leave now," said Harry, with more courage than he felt. Because Crabbe and Goyle were much bigger than him and Ron. "But we don't feel like leaving. We're hungry. We've already eaten all our food, and it looks like you still have something left."
Goyle reached for the chocolate frogs next to Ron. Ron jumped forward, but before he could touch Goyle, Goyle let out a terrible scream.
Scabbers, the rat, was hanging from his finger. Its sharp little teeth sunk into Goyle's knuckle. Crabbe and Draco retreated as Goyle spun his arm and howled.
And when Scabbers finally let go and hit the window, the 3 of them disappeared instantly.
Maybe they thought there were more rats hidden in the candy, or maybe they heard footsteps. Because a second later, Hermione Granger came in. "What happened?" she asked. Noticing Candy on the floor and Ron picking up Scabbers by the tail, "I think they knocked him out," Ron told Harry while checking Scabbers. "No, I don't think so. He went back to sleep and really did sleep." "Did you already know Draco Malfoy?" Harry told her about their meeting in Diagon Alley. "I've heard about his family," said Ron grimly. "They were the first to come back to our side after you-know-who disappeared. They claim to be bewitched." Draco didn't need an excuse to switch to the dark side and turn to Hermione. "Can we do anything for you? You'd better hurry up and change your clothes. I just went up front to ask the conductor and he told me we're almost there. You guys have been fighting. You're going to get into trouble." "Before we even got there, Scabbers was the one fighting, not us," said Ron, looking angry. "Do you mind stepping out so we can change?" "All right." I came here because the people in the other compartments are acting like children, running up and down the corridors, said Hermione in a tearful tone. You've got a dirty nose, man. That's just how Hermione is, right? They were acting like children, of course, man. They're 11-year-old kids, especially the first years. They're 11-year-old kids, the older ones. Okay, it's even funny. It already shows that she was kind of ahead, a bit above her age. Ron got upset. When she left, Harry peeked out the window. It was getting dark. He saw mountains and forests under a purplish sky. The train seemed to be slowing down. He and Ron took off their jackets and put on their long black robes. Ron's was a bit short. You could see his pants underneath.
A voice echoed through the train. We will be arriving at Hogwarts in 5 minutes. Please leave your luggage on the train. It will be taken to the school.
Harry's stomach churned with nerves, and he noticed that Ron looked pale.
Under their robes, the two stuffed their pockets with the rest of the sweets and joined the kids crowding the corridors.
The train slowed down and finally stopped. People pushed to get to the door and step onto the small dark platform. Harry shivered in the cold night air. Then a lamp appeared, swinging above the students' heads, and Harry heard a familiar voice.
First-year students, first years. All right, Harry.
The large, hairy face of Rubio Hagrid was smiling over a sea of heads.
Come on, first years, come with me.
Slipping and stumbling, they followed Hagrid along a path that looked steep and narrow.
It was so dark around them that Harry thought there must be big trees there. Nobody talked much.
Neville, the boy who kept losing his frog, sniffled a couple of times.
You're about to get your first look at Hogwarts. Just a second.
Hagrid shouted over his shoulder.
Right after this bend,
There was a very loud "oh!" The narrow path suddenly opened up, all the way to the edge of a large dark lake perched high on a cliff. On the opposite shore, with windows sparkling in the starry sky, there was a huge castle with many towers and turrets.
only 4 per boat.
Shouted Hagrid, pointing to the fleet of little boats floating on the water by the shore. Harry and Ron were followed to the boat by Neville and Hermione. Man, this is so cool.
Since it's already like that from the start, Neville, Hermione, Harry, and Ron, and Hermione already form a very strong friendship in the first book.
But Neville is going to be very important. He's going to develop a lot, and he's going to be very important, and that's cool.
Since he's already there and the story pairs them, we don't pay much attention to Neville.
Hagrid shouted, "Everyone settle in!"
Who had a boat all to himself.
Then let's go.
And the fleet of little boats set off all at once, gliding across the lake. It was as smooth as glass. Everyone was silent, their eyes fixed on the great castle.
Up above, the building loomed larger as they approached the cliff where it was rising. "Duck your heads," shouted Hagrid.
When the first boats reached the cliff, everyone ducked their heads, and the little boats passed through a curtain of ivy that hid a wide opening in the face of the cliff. They were propelled through a dark tunnel. It seemed to take them under the castle, to a kind of underground dock, where they disembarked, stepping up onto stones and pebbles.
It's cool because there was a picture of a cave that has a little lake like that, which is closed off, and they even hold events there, weddings and so on. And I think they filmed that scene of the boats arriving at that place.
Hey, is that your frog over there?
Asked Hagrid, who was checking the boats as people got off. "Trevor!" shouted Neville, happily reaching out his hands. Then they went up through a passageway in the rock, following Hagrid's lantern, and finally came out onto a soft, damp lawn.
In the shadow of the castle, they climbed a stone staircase and gathered around the huge oak door.
Is everyone here? You there? Do you still have your toad?
Hagrid raised a gigantic fist, knocked 3 times on the castle door, and so Harry Potter and his friends arrive at Hogwarts.
And we're wrapping up this chapter.
I hope you enjoyed this reading and the illustrations that appeared here. Just a reminder, if you want to support this series, which costs a lot of money and is also getting results way below what I expected. I don't know if it's because it's a book reading, but YouTube ends up limiting the reach. But anyway, your help through live picks is really important so that this series can go all the way to the end.
Feel free to contribute however you want. And don't forget, if you contribute through live picks, make sure to leave your correct email so I can send you the illustrations from this episode. for you to print and color however you like. Thank you.
I'll see you in the next episode here on Leaky Cauldron, and until then, mischief managed.